This man is absolutely no stranger to Aberdeen Sports Awards. Please put your hands together for Neil Fachie MBE.
Every single one of you is at a disadvantage. You come from Aberdeen, and as such, you will find it much more difficult to succeed in life because of the central belt bias. That's not the end, by the way. Now, be honest with me. How many of you have heard a phrase like that before in your time? And be even more honest with me, how many of you believe it? Now, whilst growing up here in Aberdeen, I became aware that this was a mindset that was, and I think is, still common throughout the city. And truth be told, I believed it for a very long time as well. It was, of course, the great Sir Alex Ferguson, who during the glory days at Aberdeen Football Club used this mindset to his advantage. During his Don's reign, Fergie would constantly complain about the way that the press and the Scottish Football Association treated Aberdeen Football Club. He convinced his players that nobody wanted to see them win, and regularly he'd pin up negative news articles about his team on the dressing room wall. In doing so, he created a siege mentality. The players felt as though the world was against them, and they wanted to prove their critics wrong. And it was an absolute masterstroke. It brought incredible success to the club, culminating in European Cup Winners' Cup glory in May of 1983. Now, I think that is worth a round of applause. Unfortunately, I wasn't around to see that, but I am forever thankful to Sir Alex, as I was born a mere 9 months after that phenomenal sporting occasion. Thank you, Sir Alex. Now, this can be an incredibly powerful mindset, and it's something that I've employed during my own sporting career as well. It's what I like to call the "I'll show you" approach. So I want to take you back to when I was a young teenager here in Aberdeen training at the athletics club, and I was what could be best described as a bit of a late developer in sport, so I wasn't particularly good at the time. And I said to my coach at the start of one year what times I wanted to run for the 100 and 200 metres that season. I should point out before I tell this story, Eddie McKenna wasn't my coach at the time. He took one look at me and he laughed and he said, "Well, it's good to dream big." I'll show you, I thought. And I did. In just the second event of that season, I ran those times for both the 100 and 200 metres. And if truth be told, that season was a bit of a turning point for me in my sporting career. I started to be relatively competitive again. And it's something I've also employed in my later sporting career in cycling. In the run-up to the London 2012 Paralympic Games, team selections were made, and there were 2 male sprint tandems going to the Games. I was selected with the slightly slower pilot, and we were very much considered to be the slower B tandem. And frankly, that was all the motivation I needed. Later that summer, I achieved a dream, and I became a Paralympic champion. There is, however, a problem with this mindset. And the point is, it took someone, the likes of Fergie, who was infamous for being a man who played mind games, to really drive it forwards. And the problem is, for a lot of people, if you tell them that the world is against them, rather than trying to prove you wrong, they'll start to believe it. I think Fergie created this Central Belt, West Coast bias mindset, and it swept across our city, and I think many of us started to believe it. Now, there is an alternative way of thinking, and this is something I've only really realized recently. As many of you will be aware, at last year's Rio Paralympic Games, I won a silver medal. Now, at the time, I considered that to be a complete and utter failure. In the preceding 4 years, I'd gone undefeated in international sport. And as such, we went into those games as absolute nailed-on favourites. For whatever reason, on that given day, things just didn't quite happen for us. It just didn't quite click. And sport can be so cruel that way sometimes. Now, up until that point, I'd consider myself to be invincible. And people would often ask me, Neil, what do you plan to do after sport? And I'd tell them, well, I've still got years to go yet, and frankly, I'll find something. Things always work out. But now I was facing a kind of truth. When I got back to normality, I started to question whether this was the beginning of the end of my sporting career. Perhaps it was the start of a downward spiral. And I had to face the very real possibility that my sporting career was coming to an end soon. I had no other source of income, and frankly, I didn't really know who I was outside of sport. So, when I got home, I did a lot of soul searching, and I started to read a lot more books about personal development and about what makes the most successful people in life tick. And I started to notice a bit of a trend, and I want to share with you tonight what I learned. The people in life who truly succeed do not chase success, but instead seek a life of significance. I'm going to say that one more time because I think it's crucially important. The truly successful people in life do not chase success, but instead seek a life of significance. So, what does this actually mean? Well, I think a life of significance is one that has real meaning to it, one that's in alignment with your core beliefs. I think you really need to discover what it is in life that you're truly passionate about and surround yourself with people who will make you be better. The key point to a life of significance is one that adds value to the world around it. And you do that by sharing your knowledge with other people. I think we're often guilty of thinking that someone else's gain will be our loss. And in reality, with this mindset, to put it another way, if you help someone out, you're not giving them a piece of your pie, but instead, by working together, by collaborating, together you're creating a much bigger pie so that everyone has a bigger share at the end of the day. It's for this reason that, along with my wife, I've recently set up a new business. Our passion is to help people reach their full potential in whatever their chosen field is by helping them maximize their nutrition, their lifestyle, and their belief system. And the truth is, I'm really excited now about the future. I'm not scared about what life will hold after sport for me. And in a sporting sense, physically, I think I'm now actually in better shape than I was at the Games last year. And perhaps even most important of all, I've learned to forgive myself for what happened in Rio. I now realize that winning a silver medal at what is the pinnacle of my sport is in itself a phenomenal achievement. Those of you who know me will know that I am a very proud Aberdonian, and barring last night, I am proud to call myself a Dons fan these days as well. I used to think that coming from Aberdeen meant that I was at a disadvantage. But looking back, I now realise that it's the strong communities that we have here in Aberdeen that helped me on my journey to achieving my dreams. I now think it's time for me to give something back. And earlier today, I met with 4 bright stars for the future, many of whom are here tonight as well. This was the first of first meeting of a new mentoring program set up by the Active Aberdeen Partnership, along with myself, to help the next generation of athletes on their journeys. Now, this is immensely fulfilling for me as well, and I'm going to strongly encourage that some more of our city's top sports stars will join us so that we can bring this program to more of our aspiring, young, talented athletes. And finally, I'm going to ask something of all of you right now. I want you to take a look at the people who are sat at your table. Admittedly, by this stage in the night, some of them might be looking a little worse for wear. Try to remember what they looked like at the start of the night for their sake, please. Just think about their sporting background and the lessons that they've learned along the way. And now I want you to look at this room as a whole, all the people that we have here tonight. Think about what are the things that you could teach them in your sporting world, and also the lessons that you've learned just even in your day-to-day life. What are the things that they could teach you? How much accumulative knowledge do you think we actually have right here in this room tonight? I'm going to challenge you and say, it is time for you to start sharing your knowledge with other people. It is time for you to put those lessons you learned into action. It is time to turn the city of Aberdeen into a true sporting hub of excellence. It is time to start living a life of significance. And most importantly, it is time to make the city of Aberdeen great once more. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your night.